אנחנו עוד לא באוויר. אתה רוצה לראות?
Good morning everyone, each one. Dear colleagues from Japan, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being with us. We are honored and pleasured in Magenta Vidadom to host the dear friends and colleagues from Japan this morning and to have the opportunity to hear from them about their experience preparing and responding to earthquakes in Japan. As we all know, Japan is a global role model for the whole world when it comes to preparedness and response to earthquakes. So for us, it's a great opportunity to hear from them. So without further ado, I will ask Professor Lachina, Deputy Director General of Magenta Vidadom for Public Services, and the boss of this marvelous facility, welcome here.
Thank you, Chaim, very much. Thank you, a very, very important delegation from Japan, for coming to Israel. We welcome you here together with everybody who is online and looking forward to hear from you and from your experience regarding preparedness and, of course, earthquakes. My friends from the Ministry of Health, Dr. Salmon, my friends from Magenta Vidadom, and everybody who is listening to us right now. It's a fantastic occasion and a real pleasure to welcome you, especially when we look into what happened just, a month ago in Turkey, from something that we are all need to be prepared for. We usually say that Israel, the first major earthquakes in the world, we think happened here, because it's documented in our Bible, in the Holy Book. This was in the Syrian African area, created the Jordan River, and it is documented in the Bible. So we think this was the first one, in Sodom and Gomorrah. However, we need to prepare ourselves, and this opportunity is fantastic that we can hear from you, exchange ideas, and learn more. And of course, as the cherry on the cake for me, later on, we'll take you around this building that was just inaugurated, that we thought we built it to face disasters, including earthquake. So thank you very much, and we are very happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Shenar. I'll try to manage technology, hopefully. Where is the... This one? So it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Professor Tat. Please.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Shalom, this is Professor Tatsuhiko Kubo from Hiroshima University. I'm a lead of this Japanese delegate. I'm very honored to be here this time. Actually, this is my 5th time visit to your land. Every time I came here, you impressed me, you make us happy, and we did have a very enjoyable moment, including this time. And this time, thanks to the coordination by Noah, our friends, and Dr. Salmon, and all colleagues from Magenta Vidadom, and also from the Professor Shina, we do appreciate your very warm welcome. Thank you very much, Madam. And this time, I'm also very happy that we came as a big delegate. We had 9 representatives, including Dr. Yuichi Koido, who is a director of our national disaster medical system, DMAT. Unfortunately, he could not come here today because there was some airline issue, and this last night, very late at last night, the airline company, Cathay Pacific, suggested him to change his flight in this very early morning. So it was very sorry, but he tasked me this presentation. I'm very honored to do this. And what I'm very impressed by our director Koido, always, as always, is that he gave me this kind of a very thick document, and I have noticed during last night he wake up also a version of it 3 times, because I see the PowerPoint version 3, and he give me a very much read science on. So this is how he believes you as a partner and friends, and this is how our director wished to share knowledge with all of you, our good friends of your people. So let me try to do my role on behalf of Director Koido. Let us share some Japanese knowledge how we prepare the earthquake in Japan. Director Yuichi Koido, and he is a Secretary General of the DMAT, Disaster Medical Assistance System in Japan. And he has been appointed in this system from 2010. And actually he was the first director, and he keep on this role for up to, till now. As you know, Japan is a country with many, many disasters. In Japan, natural disasters such as typhoon, heavy rains, heavy snowfall, floods, volcanic eruption, and earthquake are experienced almost every year. In addition, Japan has experienced many disasters other than natural disasters, such as 1995 sarin chemical attacks on the Tokyo subway and the nuclear accident in Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in 2011. Japan's disaster medical system has improved significantly during those by those experiences. And Japan disaster medical care system began as an international response. We Japan no longer needs such kind of disaster response system. We forgot how the Mother Nature songs and how medical emergency sometimes come to us. And we started, so we lose the war in 1945, and after that, in Ise-ban typhoon, there was a typhoon, big typhoon, which is said to have caused the greatest damage since the beginning of the 19th century, 19,000 years, struck just after 6 p.m. on September 29, 1959, and caused a massive damage. And we lost many lives, as detailed on the PowerPoint. This big damage caused by the Ise-ban typhoon was a turning point for the Japanese government, or Japan, for disaster management preparedness, given rise to the movement to the plan and to prepare a comprehensive disaster management system, and in 1961, the Disaster Countermeasure Basic Act was activated. So this was a starting point of the current Japanese medical system, Japanese whole disaster management system. However, after the Ise-ban typhoon, we were very lucky. There was no big disaster. And the next major disaster that killed more than 1,000 people occurred 30 years later after that big typhoon in 1995. This rank, 62 years, was a very precious time. We were lucky. But on the other hand, disaster medicine in Japan, unfortunately, didn't develop during those peacetime. Things have been changed in 1995. Magnitude 7.3 Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake struck our country at AM 5:46 in the morning of January 17, 1995. The human toll from the disaster was extremely severe, with 6,434 people killed, 3 missing, and 43,000 injured. Despite we prepared a basic disaster countermeasures law and some preparedness and other laws, but and also with our pride, preparedness, it was very difficult to work in an organized manner during this great earthquake. As a result, it was a wake-up call for us, for the Japanese disaster response, especially for the medical, in terms of medicine. During this great earthquake, more than 6,400 people died in the Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake. However, our survey after action review reveals that if we can provide the proper medical care in timely manner, approximately 500 people, maybe we can save their lives. In other words, there was 500 preventable disaster deaths occurred in Japan, and we found it from this earthquake. So based on this lesson learned, there were currently 4 main lessons learned from this earthquake. How did the Japanese government respond to them is, regarding the fact that there were no hospitals prepared for disaster in those days, a disaster-based hospital was established in 1996, which is very earthquake resilient and ready for disaster response. For the lack of transportation evacuation, namely Medivac system, so we have developed the system of the wide area and medical evacuation system since 2004. And for the lack of medical information sharing, we developed a system to share hospital damage and so on since 1996. Last pillar is for the lack of disaster medical response team in the acute phase. DMAT, our director corridor is in command of this, was established since 2005. It took some years, but we established those 4 pillars after the great earthquake in 1995. And the first pillar is the disaster-based hospital. They need to have the hospital need to have capacity to receive injured and patients anytime, 24 hours every day, and also need to have DMAT, namely the emergency medical team, which is a very small Japanese unique team, DMAT teams. And also they need to establish a business contingency plan for disaster to be prepared. For facilities, the hospital need to equip, has to provide disaster-specific, they need to prepare some disaster-specific medical kits, space for extra beds, heliport, private power generators, and its fuel, food, water, medicines for at least 3 days standalone operation. And when we look into the 500 cases which we regard a case of preventable disaster deaths in that earthquake, that could have been, that was mainly burns and crash syndrome. Severe burns and crash syndrome alone occurred for more than 75%, and if we could provide proper care to them, maybe we could save them. However, during those days, it was difficult to provide treatment using abundant resources in the disaster area without electricity and water. So the idea was to transport patients to hospital, which is in the non-affected area, that can provide specialized treatment for those patients. And it's come to the wide area in medical evacuation Medivac system. For the lack of transportation system, we developed this thing. This system is to transport patients from disaster area to non-affected area to the hospital. When major disaster occurs, assembling point which is called Staging Care Unit, SCU, in Japan are set at the airport. DMAT, our national EMT, gather up at the SCU and make one team, then transport patients via helicopter or ambulance. This helps to reduce the demand of the hospital in the affected area, but also helps patients to have better quality of medical care, we believe. In the great earthquake in 1995, all medical institutes provided medical care to the best of their ability. We do trust this thing. But however, the number of patients who flooded into the outpatient clinic was highly skewed from hospital to hospital. This presentation shows that one hospital had 112 doctors, but only 666 patients. On the other hand, another hospital had only 7 doctors, but actually accepted more than 1,000 patients. So how we can, so here's another gap, information gap, I would say, we need to fix. So we set up the information management system, which is called Emergency Medical Information System, EMIS in Japan. When disaster occurs, hospital can now input their building status, electricity, water, oxygen, lifeline status, and human resources, so on, which help headquarters or coordination cell to see which hospital need to be supported. And DMAT team can put the activity status such as their location, what activities they are now doing, and the team member list, so on, as a medical resources which can be mobilized. This helps operation headquarters to see how we can deploy the DMAT as and make strategically. I say DMAT many times, but see, DMAT is a disaster medical assistant team. DMAT is defined in Japan as a medical team just mobile and trained to operate in the acute phase, super acute phase of disasters. This team was formed in 2004. Team consists of doctor, nurses, and logistician, which is medical staff other than doctor and nurses. One team usually only have 5 to 6 people, very small team. Like it looks like a Maganda Bikaton, I sometimes feel. Only 2 doctors, 2 nurses, and 1 logistician. This is a very general structure. And DMAT is professionally trained as it is capable to respond to the disaster area within 48 hours. I now realize our teams are responded less than 1 year. They can be mobilized in a very swift manner. And DMAT brings minimum standard medical equipment only. They will not bring tent or heavy equipment, since DMAT are supposed to assist hospitals. Namely, we had a disaster-based hospital, so we believe we have some physical structure in affected area. And DMAT can more focus on the swift operation. We can talk about this thing later on, but they can be the big team if a lot of teams get together. If the 5 team come, DMAT team come together, and they can act like one big team. Why we need DMAT? This is our operational concept. The needs for life-saving medical care and logistic transport are greatest immediately soon after the disaster, when disaster strikes the region. On the other hand, it took some time for conventional medical teams to arrive and local facility to get to build back their operation. So this time gap caused disaster deaths that could have been prevented. Therefore, by dispatching those DMAT teams with mobility, the missing needs are fulfilled, and the number of prevented disaster deaths would be reduced. This is the very basic and original concept of the DMAT. And current state of Japan DMAT. We have already we have a member from 828 hospital. Number of team is more than 1,700, and Director Koido has already trained the members 15,000, more than 50,000. I believe nowadays it's over 16,000, and those members are in command with under the Director Koido. And the DMAT activity. So this is why the DMAT activity places priority on establishment on headquarters as a prefecture and the disaster-based hospital, and consolidating damage to medical institute and so on. So firstly, DMAT team is trying to set up the coordination mechanism, and they go to the headquarters of local authority and set up some coordination cell. And then next, start envision medical situation, in situations and the facilities. That is our general approach. Maybe same to your approach. We need, first of all, we need command and control system, and DMAT are playing that key role in the local authority. And the next, they mobilize the team into the field. Deployment of DMAT is based on a request from the disaster affected prefecture. Local authority have a role and responsibility to call DMAT or not. And also the National Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare is required to provide necessary support to the prefecture by actively collecting information from the time a disaster occurs. An extreme emergency can paralyze the function of the affected prefecture government. So in this case, the Ministry of Health, MHLW, may request action to an affected prefecture without a request from the affected prefecture. And our director also wished to speak some about the importance of the DMAT secretariat function. There's a DMAT office. When you conduct DMAT system, when we conduct a DMAT system, having secretariat function is essential. In order to properly function during disaster time, we need to prepare from normal time for sure. And this is showing what kind of the activity which Office of Director Koido do during normal time and disaster time. I believe this you can find a much similarity of your great preparedness. And in Japan, having this secretariat function, we are able to manage DMAT operation at the time of disaster. And after establishment of DMAT, nowadays DMAT has responded to all major disasters like this. Almost everywhere doing something. Natural disasters such as earthquake, tornado, some of the ambient avalanche disasters. And not only to the natural, DMAT responded to the train accident, airline belly landing accident, and even attended at the 2008 summit, and so on, so on, so on. Our big next challenge came to us in 2011. March 11th, as you know, the Great East Japan earthquake occurred. At the time, 359 DMAT teams, more than almost about 2,000 members, 1852 members responded to the affected area and helped damage hospital operation and a lot of patient evacuations. From this great earthquake, Japan raised new problems and considered improvement. We got new lessons learned. We have established DMAT Secretariat to strengthen command and control function of DMAT. As you find in your system, we DMAT or Japan also a bit lately, but also realized very with confidence, command and control is something we need to do at the beginning. Improve the expand EMIS information system to cover hospital all over in Japan, made all DMAT teams to have at least one satellite phone to secure the communication line to the disaster time. We strengthened our communication system and the information management system. And DMAT also activity duration was extended to over the subsequent phase, which is the phase of regaining the function of the public health system. We used to focus on first 3 days, but now it's going more longer, like 1 week or more. And logistic coordination, vital, of course you realize, was considered to support more precise logistic enrichment. So we also try to strengthen our logistic coordination mechanism. And the next one came. There was a Kumamoto earthquake in 2016. And this shows, based on some lesson learned, based on the previous disaster lesson learned, this shows now how the disaster medical team meeting, or this is actually a coordination meeting, maybe same to your system, but maybe Japan relatively choose more civil approach, and many NGOs and many private hospital organizations, they all come to this meeting, and we open this place for almost every partners and do the coordination meeting like this. It was used to be done by each team, but for the Kumamoto earthquake in 2016, a lot of various disaster medical teams from different medical organizations got together. We made one table and reported situations, sharing status, problems, challenges, and found a way to solve each problem jointly. And this Kumamoto earthquake gives us some new lesson learned. We have established a system to send liaison to the affected government to strengthen disaster medical management. In this earthquake, aftershock of earthquake occurred during the patient evacuation. Therefore, the standardized safety management was again recognized. So how we can best protect our members became again a big issue. A lot of evacuees stayed as evacuation shelters and become ill or unhealthy conditions. Therefore, DMAT sent liaison to the public health office to complete screening of evacuation shelters to provide health management for evacuees. So DMAT team is no longer a clinical team, but they also provide public health support. And also, logistic coordination became also a big problem, as all disasters do, and disaster logistic team function was also again strengthened. In together to those earthquake response, Japan has experienced various disasters since the Kumamoto earthquake in 2016. Japan disaster medical response has continued to develop with each disaster. This development continued to this way. Until now, the analysis of the current situation and the policy for activities, such as how many teams to dispatch to which area and how to consider the damage situation, have depended on experienced personnel in time of disaster. However, we wish to change this thing some heavy rain just hit Western Japan in June 2018. Flooded area was distributed lifelines, and the locations of medical institutes were mapped. And run simulation technology were used as decision-making tools, and the accuracy and functionality have improved. In addition, systems have been developed in a specific field such as DPAT, which is a disaster psychological assistant team, and they provide psychiatric care in times of disaster, and pediatric care, perinatal liaison for pediatric perinatal care. So we are trying to expand the scope of the disaster medical system in more wider manner, as you always do, I believe. And while DMAT has responded to all kinds of natural, radiological, and local disasters starting in 2020, we have been also confronting the COVID-19 pandemic, as you do, which we had a new experience, and which we don't have before. And once the COVID started in Japan, actually, my understanding, DMAT have no obligation or the official tasking by the government to do the pandemic response. But our Prime Minister suggests to mobilize the DMAT and Director Koido mobilize his team. These photos show some of the scenes of us as DMAT responding to the COVID-19, including the cruise ship Diamond Princess, which was a very fast case of us to manage the huge cluster of COVID-19. And I saw your people coming over to Japan and to evacuate some your people safe to your land. And we do have some communication with the government and your people to make a successful medical evacuation from the cruise ship Diamond Princess. Challenge keep on going. Now we're getting out of the COVID-19 pandemic, I hope. but here's a new statistic coming to us. Earthquake directly under, which will hit Tokyo capital, which is our science tell that will be a 70% point incidence rate in the next 30 years, magnitude 70.3. Damage about more than 200,000 buildings is expected. For human damage, assumption is reduced, but something there is a good news. Damage assumption, which was done in 2012, that reported we will lose more than 19,700 lives. But just last year, our new science says a new assumption predicts that deaths would be 6,000. So we have reduced the number. And why this happened within these 10 years? This is due to the progress of the earthquake resistance and the fireproofing of the building. The damage estimates have been greatly reduced in the last decade, in these 10 years. And I do hope, I do believe this approach can be also, effective in many or all countries. So this is not a medical thing, but we believe and proud of this great 10 years progress of our country. However, we still see expected more than 1,300 cases of crash syndrome and 2,800 cases of severe burns from the fire. Table number. So we need to manage those things. And also, I think this is one of the key things we wish to pass to you. Cause of death in the great earthquake. We do have many, many earthquakes in Japan, but the major earthquake that occurred in the past had totally different cause of death depending on each earthquake. The same earthquake can cause different events that require different response. In other words, different essence of disaster. You can see 2011 great let's start from the 1923 in Lebanon. Mostly we lost the life with fire, namely burns. In 1995, we lost by the crash of the building, trauma deaths. In 2011, great earthquake, it was mainly due to the tsunami. I know your best knowledge. You Israeli people have a very good skill to develop your scenario. And I think that is one of the secrets how you professionally prepared just to the emergency. But what we can say from the, we wish to learn from your skill. But what we can learn from our Japanese beta lesson learn, each earthquake, it gives us a totally different scenario, and we need to manage those different scenarios. And thus, we DMAT have responded to various earthquakes. However, the essence of the same type of earthquake was totally different. These were all the same earthquake, but the main event of the event, the essence of the disaster was different. As I said, in the Great Hanjin earthquake, the main issue was the collapse of the building. Great Kansen earthquake, the fire. East Japan, tsunami, a nuclear power plant explosion. And in Kumamoto earthquake, the main issue was the distribution of lifelines. Transport by medevac is also the issue. We have already established some system, but Tokyo capital area will cause 30,800 seriously injured patients. Namely, we are overwhelmed, and currently, maximum capacity for the medevac by the Japan Self-Defense Force in one day in Tokyo at that scenario would be only 340 patients. This reality indicates that it is impossible to handle severity in jail. We cannot provide the all medevac for all patients, and if patients, some remain in the situation, affected area. So as a measure, we are working to strengthen hospital functions. In 2009, business contingency plan formulation was included in the requirement for the designation as a disaster-based hospital. Every disaster hospital must develop the business contingency plan now. And now in the 2021, the BCP formulated rate is 100%. Finally, we reached all disaster-based hospital has established the business contingency plan. Also, disaster-based hospitals are now required to maintain generators with a capacity of 60% of the normal capacity and keep enough water to maintain hospital functions for at least 3 days. So we are trying to strengthen our disaster-based hospital by the planning and the logistic preparedness. Helicopters. Another measure is the operation of doctor helicopters for patient transport. After the wide area medical transport Medivac plan was taken place in 2004, the number of doctor helicopters have increasing like this, 7-fold. Therefore, now we are considering the use of doctor helicopters to transport severely ill patients who would have traditionally been transported by wide area medical transport by the fixed wing airplane of this Japan Self-Defense Force. Another important issue is how to reduce earthquake-related deaths. It's a bit wider concept, and I believe that this issue would be also covered our Director Tomio. But this is a figure from the Kumamoto earthquake and so on. 900 people died in the Great Hanshin-Aji earthquake, and the 3,700 people died in the Great East Japan earthquake, and 200 more in the Kumamoto earthquake. As an earthquake-related death, this is not directly caused by the earthquake, but especially for the elderly who need to stay in shelter and so on, related to that situational change or environmental stress, they finally, we couldn't save them, and actually we lost their lives. And this is now becoming a very significant number. So the disaster response is no longer a trauma thing. It's a more long-term things, including how we can provide the elderly or disabled people and save their lives. Namely, since most earthquake-related deaths are caused by people in need of assistance during disasters, we are working to address this issue for those vulnerable to disaster, elderly and so on. Therefore, Japan is working to secure medical care for those people who need some specific assistance during disaster response through collaboration among various professional organizations as a multidisciplinary functions, including a welfare system and so on. But something Director Koido suggested yesterday night was you kindly accept us to go to the HMO, one of the HMO, and we are so fascinated by your great preparedness. We found that maybe your approach is have more information management or advanced approach. So maybe Japan has a serious problem here, but also maybe we can, we hope we can learn from your knowledge. Maybe you're advanced of us, we feel. In the past, even in the time of disaster, medical teams, health and welfare department were separated in this way, like upper one, to issue instruction to health content and local government. It used to be our very silo approach. But now, Japan is trying to shift into the next one, current down one, and to break those silos and make a one coordination big table. This is a presentation from my director, and I do hope some of this message from our director can fulfill some of your knowledge gap. Thank you very much for sharing, for accessing us, and having this in this very important meeting this time. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Can you introduce your next speaker?
Yeah, okay. So our next speaker is Director Tomio, and he's from the Public Health Issue of Japan. And let me change my presentation. Okay, from the viewpoint of public health, he would kindly give us a talk. And the, where is it? Oh, maybe here. So Director Koido is a medical aspect we mainly focus on, and the public health aspect, Director Tomio would share us. Would you please? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Professor Kubo, kindly introduced me. And I'm Jun Tomio from the National Institute of Public Health, which is directly under the Ministry of Health and Labor Welfare in Japan. And actually, I'm originally an emergency physician and public health researchers, and joined this institute 1.5 years ago. And today, I would like to explain about just a bit, adding some public health aspect of disaster preparedness and response. Yes, I'm sorry, but there is some overlap of the story with just a presentation of Professor Koido, Director Koido. But first, I'd like to share about the, okay, can you hear me? Disaster-related deaths. Professor Kubo said that the trauma is no longer the only thing for the disasters. We have to think about the disaster-related death is caused by the secondary or indirect cause of the disasters. This due to illnesses, not directly caused by the disaster, but due to aggravation of something happening. Okay, of injuries or physical strain of living in evacuation. So, as Professor Kubo showed that in recent disaster, especially the Kumamoto earthquake in 2016, we cannot compare these figures simply, but the 3 out of 4 patients deaths caused by the indirect cause, disaster-related deaths. Okay, sorry. So we have to think about the importance of the indirect cause of disaster deaths. This is a bit difficult to think about the reasons for this, but the aging population is definitely one of the causes of the related deaths. This is a transition of the population pyramid of Japan. As you can see, the 1995, which is the year the Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake occurred. It was the proportion of the age 65 or older was about 14.6. But now, 2020, our proportion of elderly increased to 28.7. So this is quite different from the Israel pyramid. As you can see, your beautiful triangle. So, yeah. But we are somewhat more vertical. And maybe so the topic here I speak about is not an imminent issue to you, but maybe after 3 or 4 decades, a couple of decades, you have to think about this kind of issues. So that in order to prevent the secondary effect of the disasters, we have to provide some activities in terms of public health. For instance, the prevention of secondary health impact is its most important, and also support for those who need special care, like long-term cares and disabled. And also, we have to think about infection control prevention, especially in the evacuation center. This is a picture of the evacuation center of the flood disaster in 2018, I think. This is actually the evacuation centers in Japan is more messy. But recently, people developed such kind of clean and tidy shape of the evacuation center. Also, food nutrition guidance is important, and oral health and mental health are also important. And as Professor Kubo said, or Director Koido said, we recently developed Ministry of Health, Labor, Welfare requested to the prefectural government to establish disaster public health management structure, namely Health, Medical, and Welfare Coordination Headquarters. The name is not, so we have no official name in English, so sometimes the name is a bit different, but I call it headquarters in the prefecture. So this support the public health centers and local authorities, local health authorities, to their tactical work by presenting some necessary resources, by providing planning and also data analysis. But there is a shortage of human resources to manage such kind of like emergency operations center in the disaster situation. So, I'm sorry, that this is a kind of sample of the headquarters structure. In the headquarters, usually the lead is played by the department head, the general government official, local government officials. But the key person is a deputy lead, which is expert in disaster medicine and public health. We are really now focusing on how to create and how to ensure that kind of expert in Japan, because we are really in short of that kind of personnel in local government. Under the deputy lead, we have several functional some officials, public health, medical, pharmaceutical, and mental health, and also welfare, long-term care or disability, and the DMAT and DPAT and other supporting team join this headquarters for coordinated approach. But we have the staff shortage, so after the Great East Japan earthquake in 2011, several discussions how to ensure the human resources in the public health emergencies. And established in 2018, we developed public health experts for the disaster management, which is called Disaster Health Emergency Management Team, DHEAT. This is made up of the government officials in the prefectures and large cities, for example, public health physicians and public health nurses. And this is totally different from the DMAT or DPAT, which is made up of the medical doctors or relatively private ones. So the DHEAT is a public team, a kind of a mutual aid of the local government, between the local governments in times of the disasters. So what the DHEAT do? They support the command and coordination functions of the headquarters and local health authorities and public health centers. DHEAT help to set up health emergency management operations, and they do data collection and analysis, and also coordination of support teams, and they do the public relations and external relations. And they also involved in staff safety and healthcare management. So they have a lot of things to do. But we have still, so this is a kind of where the DHEAT work in times of disaster. DHEAT joined the headquarters, and DHEAT also joined the public health centers and local health authorities. But we have several challenges, especially in the human resources. We have a shortage in the absolute number of the local government officials, but very few small proportion of the local government officers have been educated officially or some comprehensively of the emergency management. So we have to dedicate to develop such kind of workers by training and exercise. And also, this headquarters and DHEAT are hazard specific and exclusively focused on natural disasters, especially earthquakes and floods. And such kind of headquarters are not used for example, pandemic and other chemical accidents and nuclear accidents. And we also need to provide a risk assessment and also, like you, the reference scenarios. We have prepared for the earthquake and the floods, but not based on the reference scenarios, just based on the experience. So we have we have to learn from you a lot about the reference scenarios. And also, collaboration and coordination of the support team. I will show you some part of some supporting team who are involved in the disaster management. You know that DMAT, DPAT, JRC, JMAT, it's almost like a quiz. We have a lot of different partners, so we have to recognize what their role is and what is some background. So the collaboration and coordination is a key of our future disaster preparedness response. And also, standardized systems should be developed. Okay, I'm sorry about my poor English, but this is a brief introduction of Japan's public health aspect of the disaster preparedness response. And you have, thank you very much.
And so Japan approaches something that DMAT give us a great model how we can set up a small team with a very specific function, a strong coordination mechanism. And the following that DMAT system, DPAT psychiatric team, which will be also led by Professor Takahashi, and so many teams are now on board, including oral health and so on. And we are trying to coordinate those huge capacity and try to fit for each disaster or emergency response. That is our current approach to the, especially for the natural disaster.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
When they arrive in a hospital, they are under the director of the hospital, or they are an independent?
So the DMAT members, on a daily level, they work at some hospital. But once they we activate the system, and they go out and they start assisting some other hospital, of course, they are becoming under the direction of the hospital director of the affected coordination. But they are also coordinated or directed by the DMAT headquarters. So there's a two actually direction. And but on how to say, where to go or what is basically suggested by the DMAT office. But what to do is, of course, need to coordination with the hospital director of the accepted hospital. Does that sound clear to you? Okay. Yeah.
It's important for us, the relationship between those who support and the local structure.
Exactly, sir. So how we can fit in and how we can get the, direction of the affected people is always a key. and because they are authority in that system, and that is how to try to fit in our system under the local authority. This is a very universal approach, I feel.
That's just because the audience, we have a lot of listeners, and they cannot hear the question. So if you please can reply on the question before you answer, so
Repeat the question.
they
Gotcha.
will know what to connect for.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you.
So the question is about command and control. When DMATs deployed into some affected hospital, who is a coordinator? Who is a coordinator? Who is directing the team? This is a bit tricky saying, but of course, once DMAT team come into the other hospital, I mean the affected hospital, that team will be under direction of that hospital director. This is, of course, we respect the local authority as always. But also, at the same time, where to go, namely which hospital to go, or the tomorrow where this team go, will be coordinated by the DMAT headquarters. So actually, there's a two line of direction, but we try to coordinate those, liaise those things, and make a better distribution of the DMAT team with respect to the local or hospital director, local authority. Sir.
Yes, but it's still the hospital head that makes the call. It's not the coordination cell.
Okay, so to activate the DMAT system will be made by the local prefecture, public authority will be made, and there will be the coordination cell of DMAT in the headquarter prefecture level. And so originally, DMAT team will be, for the first time, they will be coordinated by the local headquarter DMAT coordination cell. But once a team was suggested to go to some hospital, and when they start their activity in the hospital, they will be, get some new, they will be under command of each hospital. But whether to stay in the hospital or move this team to the other hospital will be coordinated by the headquarter coordination cell. Am I saying it's clear to you, sir?
But there's still an assessment to be made inside the hospital, so that means that the coordination team is not necessarily aware of the needs and the shortage of each hospital.
Yes.
So the hospital makes the
Hospital will.
The hospital says we need a team.
Yes, that's sometimes happen. So as sir suggested, assessment is always the first thing to do. And we try to strengthen the capacity of assessment by each hospital by training. And so they can do some self-assessment and registers their status in the information management system. And after that, so we can get a big picture, and the coordination cell can suggest, okay, this hospital is priority. This hospital, sorry, we couldn't give you our DMAT. That kind of coordination will be decided by the coordination cell. Thank you, sir.
Professor?
Sir.
Question, please. You said that DMAT will arrive after like 48 hours, right? So what happens at the field from the disaster to the 48 hours with the EMS, how they operate at the field, what they do in the field, the operation and everything? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir. So I said 48 hours. Yes. So there's an original concept was that DMAT was started for 48 hours. But what during 48 hours is the situation, and also how the EMS system, Magana system in Japan, work together is your question, sir. Is that right? So nowadays, we DMAT team can be mobilized more and more swift manner because the members is nationwide increase, and we have 60,000 members. So each prefecture have their own DMAT members. So I would say in my local prefecture, once disaster happen, within 1 hour, some member, a representative of DMAT members, will go to the headquarters and start the coordination. And so we became more swiftly. And but first thing, so within few hours, we try to establish coordination cell. And next, decided to call DMAT team more or not, we will decide. And if we make if we found the incidence is too huge to manage by the local DMAT, we will call the other prefecture DMAT to join the disaster response. And of course, it's always the emergency medical system, Magana Bigaton of Japan, is the best partner for us. And so sometimes we got a liaison came together, and we try to coordinate the ambulance and helicopter transportation and so on. Sometimes Japan Self-Defense will also join. So at the coordination cell level, we work together. But of course, their EMS system also have their own big coordination mechanism. And of course, sometimes liaison kindly can, but the first hand, I would say, mainly they can do they do their operation by themselves, and they just send one or two liaison person to us, and we try to coordinate. That is a general picture. I hope I'm clear to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Do you know what are the operations of the EMS system, how they work? What are the protocols?
For the EMS protocol, sorry, I cannot give you some exact answer to this, but maybe not so unique, I believe. Yesterday, Magana Bigato, you kindly accept our team to visit your place. And I feel that actually, honestly speaking, your information management system is far beyond us. But the original concept seems very same to us. So there could be some core of the incidents, and we expand the capacity. That's a general approach, I would say. Thank you, sir. Thank you. If there is no more question, can we take a short break? How does short break is good? How does it?
Yeah, 10
good.
minutes break.
10 minute break? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
לצופים שלנו תודה רבה, אנחנו יוצאים ל10 דקות הפסקה פיזיולוגית, נחזור בשעה 10:15. 10:15. I invite the colleagues to follow me.
I'm sorry? Okay.
Can we? So thank you for coming back. I have heard that more than 200 participants is online. This is a great privilege, and thank you very much for giving us your precious time. And let us try our best to deliver some Japanese knowledge. And the next speaker is Professor Sho Takahashi, and he's a leading researcher or actually the responder leading the psychiatric approach, psychological approach of Japanese disaster medical response. Sho sensei, please.
Shalom, I'm Sho Takahashi, and I belong to the Department of Disaster Psychiatry in Japan. So it's a great honor to be here and make a presentation to all of you. So today I'd like to talk about the disaster medical care and the psychosocial care activity in Japan. So previously, there's many disaster occurs in Japan. So, and there's no area without disaster in Japan. And these some scenario and anticipated these disasters. They were very huge earthquake were anticipated. For example, Tokyo Island earthquake and Nankai Trough earthquake, and also we have an experience of Tokyo 2020 Olympic, and also we have scheduled the Osaka Expo 2025. So risk of the terrorist attack and the psychological problem are due to the mass gathering. So who should receive care during a disaster? So we divided two sectors. One is survivors and also the supporters. For example, the healthcare providers and firefighters, also the some kind of the soldiers. And about the survivors, almost 70% or 80% is healthy people, and there's some people who have suffered mental disability as a result of the disaster. And also there's people requiring support, and for example, children and the elderly and foreigners. Their ordinary time, they have some vulnerability from the ordinary time. And also there's people with a mental disability, and there's some people who have severe mental disability, and also in an evacuation center, it's a little bit difficult to adapt at the situation because it's very hard place. So, and also there's the lapse of the symptom due to the interrupt of the treatment. There is no medication at the disaster. And also alcohol and the drug with the low symptom was seen in the situation. And also supporters, these healthcare workers, and also all the first responder needs support for the mental health. And this is one of the figure. It's Raphael's a very famous figure, and it shows the passage of the time and the mental movement after a large-scale disaster. So first, if some disaster happened, and all the people have a negative and a depressive feeling, and just like stupor phase, and then going to the honeymoon phase, they're a little bit excitement active, and looks healthy at the first glance, but finally they work too hard and then go into the disillusionment mental phases, and accumulated tension and fatigue, and it causes the mental and physical disorders, and they going to the recover the time passed. And also a psychological impact by the disaster. So this, in the disaster phase, this is a normal response to the abnormal situation. But some people and many people feel the insomnia, such like a sleep disorder, and also some people have a feeling and have a reaction of the acute stress response, and also the acute stress disorder, and some people have post-traumatic stress disorders, we call it PTSD, and the depression and the grief reaction and the sense of guilty for the victims. And also there are so many impact was seen in the disaster. So now I'm going to make a presentation for the current status of the Japanese mental support system. First, I would like to talk about the damaged psychiatric hospital. So psychiatric hospital is have a vulnerability. For example, its location and its building is a little bit old to compare with the another general hospital. And so there is a problem of the transporting is required if there is a risk of collapse of the building. And also a staff member, sometimes it's difficult to get together, and the fatigue of the staff member, and also the lack of the relief supply in staying in the hospital. So support is needed. And also it's the same things at the clinics. And so in Japan there are so many psychiatric clinics, but they need the support at the time. So I'd like to say DPAT. DPAT is previously, Dr. could say that, it's a disaster psychiatric assistant team. I think that it's a little bit rare team in the very rare teams, but I would like to talk about it. And so why DPAT is needed? So previous lecture say that Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake, and there are so many people. There were so 500 avoidable disaster-related deaths, and then DMAT was established. And then after the Great East Japan earthquake hit Japan, and there's so those are people who die in a tsunami, and another one is escaped and survived. So completely different. So, and also they recognize the importance of the mental recovery from the acute period to the mid to the long term. So the PAT, psychiatric and mental health care team was established. And this is the issues from the Great East Japan earthquake, psychosocial care team. This is a history of previous history of Japan. And there is three big issues: need for the acute support, and the need for the supervision, and the need for the normal time of preparation. So first, the issue of the acute support. So support for the psychiatric hospitals, is a lack of the support. So, and there is a needs assessment, and it was difficult to understand the needs for the mental health care, especially not only the long term, but also from the acute phase, and at the psychiatric institution and the evacuation center. And the second, issues related to the supervision of instruction. And so the chain of command is very important. Actually, the such like EMT or something like this. But in psychiatric, it is one problem. So there is no chain of command at the time of the such like a psychiatric teams, and also the psychosocial is a little bit difficult. It's spread very huge area, so it's a little bit difficult. And so since the information could not be unified, it was difficult to understand the activity of the psychosocial care. And another third one is the inadequate preparation system in the normal times. So there are so many psychosocial teams. For example, psychiatrist is included, and another team is only the nurses, and another team is only the monk was and take care of the team, take care of the psychosocial care. So we need to common education is needed. So in order to address this issue, the Ministry of Health in Japan will determine the name of definition of the DPAT from the 2013. And this is how to dispatch the DPAT team. And affected prefecture request for the dispatch to the and arrangement to the Ministry of Health, and then another prefecture outside in the affected area dispatch the DPAT to the affected area. And this is the structure of the DPAT, and this one is previous psychosocial care, and this team start their activity after 1 week or 2 weeks, or so it's just a slow start of the response from the psychosocial problems. But the DPAT start from there within 48 hours, just like a DMAT or something like. So it is one of the special point of the psychiatric care, because first why the 48 hours, within the 48 hours is the responses needed, but there is some need for the command and control, and also we accumulate the data of what happened about the psychiatric problem from the early times, and the control of the DPAT. So there is the DPAT, and the member of the DPAT were involved in each levels, prefecture levels and local levels, and each teams. But the previous DPAT, there is no the member of this psychosocial members. So when a conference of the disaster, if there's no member of the psychosocial concern about psychosocial member, there is no argue of the psychosocial. So now we're going to discuss about the psychosocial from the other phase. So this is the structure of the DPAT. And the first advanced team organized by a hospital, each hospital, and go to the first period. And another local DPAT, just like a train, connect and take over the information, and they're going to try to handle with the psychosocial care. And this local care organized by the prefecture, each prefecture. And in disaster phase, the community of the mental health and the welfare system decreased, and then because of the many problems. So advanced DPAT and regional local DPAT help them to recover the welfare system. And this is the very important thing, that the cooperation system of the DPAT is in each phase. The early phases and mid and the long-term phases, So DPAT cooperate with the DMAT and previously reported the D-Heat and also the Red Cross psychological teams. And also they communicated with the public health center in the prefectures, and then take over to the local psychiatric institutions. So this is the ISC guidelines of the mental health, and then this is some case of the pyramid. So basically, DPAT help take a part of the upside of the psychiatric care, DPAT, and another. There are so many problems, psychosocial problems, and from the community phases and community and family supports, and focus on the specialized support is needed. For example, the Japanese Red Cross psychosocial care take part of the second line, and these people were educated. Have an education of the, for example, psychological first aid or something. And this is our challenge to the using the disaster medical record, especially mental health edition. So probably Dr. Kubo present to you about the JSpeed, and also there is the medical health condition record we made, and so the content is the diagnosis and the type of support and the type of response and the time of outcome. If we gather the information of the psychosocial problems, and then it is a real-time response and acute response for the mental health care. So this is a summary of our challenges. So mental support is necessary to accelerate recovery, and also important from the acute period to mid to long term. And now we're going to improve the system. And so this is one our question on the mental health in times of Tela and the war in Israel, because one of the I'd like to know and the experience of your from you. So, are there two of the medical health system for disaster psychiatry, especially PTSD? So PTSD is one of the big issue after this like war, and so. And also now we're going to preparation for in the event of the attack, medically unexplained symptom will flood at the emergency department. So how to handle with the just such like a patient, because so in Japan it's a little bit difficult to handle with such like a situation. So we just imagine what happened in the future. And this is one of the just idea, but it's a potential for the Israeli and Japanese cooperation in disaster psychiatry. So personally, I say that disaster medical record of the mental health, if we gather and accumulate these data from the early phase, so probably we could get the information of what happened in the early phase about the mental health. And also the jointly development education on the training of PTSD during disaster and from the peacetime. And so maybe we can just develop and create and share the doctrine of the disaster psychiatry and joint development of the basic platform of disaster psychiatry. Thank you for your attention, and we appreciate the opportunity to hear your great experience. Thank you very much.
Please. I will go there so people, the audience can hear me.
Oh.
So you don't have to repeat everything. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
I would like to share one experience that for me is a best practice that is done by Kizilay, our colleagues from Turkish Red Crescent.
Oh, yeah.
They have awareness-raising material on acute stress reaction, which is already printed. And when they are handing over some soup to the survivors, together with that, they would hand over a brochure on acute stress reaction. And I asked why, and a colleague from Kizilay said, I will be very non-politically correct, he said. He said, people in a disaster have nothing to do. So they will read. And that's our opportunity to tell them that a 4 years old that he's wetting his pants after an earthquake, it's a normal reaction. And parents shouldn't be stressed about it. It's a normal reaction of normal people to an abnormal situation. So the first layer of awareness raising, they said, to the general population, it's very difficult in peacetime, but they have the material, and they said, every time we outreach to someone to do healthcare or something like that, or relief distribution, they are handing over. The other thing that in Magen David Adom we are trying to promote, it's not easy, is to say psychological first aid is part of first aid. It's not, and I'm sorry that we have two separated terms, because if you don't establish a relationship, sorry, I'm sounding like a psychologist. If you don't establish a relationship with the patient, with the relatives, with the family, you cannot provide good care. And if you start there, it's much easier. Because when we say psychosocial first aid, people are like, no, I'm not a psychologist. No, you're a first aider. But you need to learn to calm people. This is what we are trying to push, and I know that the Red Cross Reference Center for First Aid is trying to push the same idea, that it's one package, it's not two different things. Though we like, as first aiders, patients who don't talk. They're much nicer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much, Professor Takahashi. So, so this is so one of the topics we wish to learn from your side more and more, and how I hope you can find how we Japan side is hungry to learn from you. And the next issue also, we would love to learn from you. It's relatively new topics in Japan, but you would find this is a very conventional topic for your side. Assistant Professor of the University of Occupational and Environment Health, Dr. Igarashi, please.
Hello, thank you for giving us opportunity to make presentation. And I am Yu Igarashi from University of Occupational Environment Health Japan, and I present you about the disaster occupational health in Japan. But there are many differences in occupational health in Israel and in Japan. Most occupational health professionals in Japan belonging to company, but I think in Israel, many occupational professionals belonging to the HMO or army or something like that, because that's because my presentation is very about Japan. Okay, thank you. And as you said, natural disaster and industrial disaster, man-made disaster, pandemics, and other disaster events continue to occur around the world. And a very large number of workers are engaged in disaster sites, whether they want to be or not. In the picture, this is a earthquake in Japan, 2011. And the right picture is terror in 1995 in Japan, in subway station, chemical teller, and many employees in subway suffer exposed to chemical size. And in US and I don't know where it is, but oil spilling in the sea, and many workers engaged in disaster site. And beginning of disaster occupational health in Japan, the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant accident caused by the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami has raised concerns about the health of workers involved in the restoration work. Our university dispatched totally 528 doctors to the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant until January 31, 2013. We ensure the health of workers at the restoration site and now still sending doctors to assist in the recovery. Workers' health risk varied with season and process progression. Most people think about the radiation hazard, but the health hazard factors are very various. Radiation, heat stroke, psychological stress, and overwork, and biogenetic factor. Japanese tends to work hard, so some workers have to overwork. And heat stroke is a very big, difficult problem. The worker in the site have to wear PPE to protect from radiation, but it causes heat stroke, and this is a trade-off of risk. PPE for radiation causes heat stroke and injury due to falls. This is a very, I have experience to wear this kind of PPE, but this is very hot. So in the summer, the workers have to be work in the very hot situation. And we have successfully prevented the occurrence of severe heat stroke. This is a trend in the occurrence of heat stroke at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, but no severe heat stroke haven't happened. This is very big success. And as Professor Kubo said, we have big three earthquake. We experienced big earthquake in Japan. Earthquake in capital and earthquake in Hanshin, Awaji, and Great East Japan earthquake. And right bottom, I showed you through this experience, we have to establish public health, disaster public health and disaster occupational health. We have to establish. This is our learn from great earthquake. And why occupational health is needed in disaster? Part one, various health hazards will be happen, which are not present in ordinary times. I show you 6 occupational health hazards, and example of health hazard: heat stroke, and overwork, and PTSD, respiratory problem, and so on. And this is very big change situation in disaster site. It is not happen in ordinary times. So we are the special professional, occupational health professional have to be here. Yes. And second, why occupational health is needed in disaster? Various vulnerable workers will be exposed to health hazard in disaster, and they will be sometimes overlooked. Example of vulnerable workers with sickness or disabilities, a public servant. And in Japan, public servant tends to be criticized. I think people in Israel trust government and public servant, but in Japan it doesn't. Public servant tends to be criticized. Public servant can't drink in front of citizens. It will be easy to criticize. So it is a kind of vulnerable workers. And employees indirectly affected by the accident, by the disaster. And workers who are not adequately prepared for disaster, their lack of compensation, protective equipment, education, and lack of OH, occupational health services. And employees belonging to the companies also, it's a kind of vulnerable workers. An example, the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant is caused very big accident. So employee belonging to the Tokyo Electric company tends to be criticized by the all over the Japan people. So we have to support, we have to save them in the disaster site. It is a kind of professional, we have to do that. And this is a lesson learned from the past disaster in occupational health. Responding to emergency, responding to disaster begins in peacetime, ordinary times. And disasters do not occur as expected. Risks are compounded and trade-offs are made. Apparent and underlying health problems will occur. The health issues that arise will change with the phase. Responding employees themselves are also victims. Some are more vulnerable and susceptible than others. Must be part of the crisis response organization to play a role. A support structure will be needed. Need to prepare and train personnel with expertise to respond. These are lessons learned from the past disasters. And our challenges, our occupational health challenge in Japan, enhancement of disaster occupational health assistance team, and establishing a framework of support, establish training programs and drills, cooperation with related organizations, and break it down into guidelines or laws or something that's doctrines. Finish. Thank you for attention.
Any quick comments, or is it good to go?
Did you have any role during COVID-19? If you can repeat just the question for the audience.
Yeah, he asked me about the role in COVID-19. We have a role about countermeasures about infection. And occupational physicians in Japan have from the past, we have to protect protect workers from tuberculosis and diarrhea or something like that. It is our history in the occupational physician have, from the past, we have the law about countermeasures for infection, about influenza or something like that. So during COVID-19 pandemics, we also have played the role about the countermeasures in company. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, allow me to do the last presentation from Japan side. And this story is not about Japan, but about us. Please find it. And let me, thinking about the time, let me very quickly run through. Japan is like this, too many earthquakes, and now the interval is decreasing. We're in a very serious condition with regards. And the universal challenge here is, as you notice now, kindly notice, we have many teams, many various teams, and they rush into the site, BECOS, DMAT, JMAT, many teams are there. And how we can make a best coordination is always a challenge, and I do believe this is a universal challenge, not just in Japan. For example, in 2011, you kindly deployed your great IDF team to Japan. But in this friendly arena, I would say from my viewpoint, personal viewpoint, we couldn't, how to say, utilize your maximize capacity. We could do more. And this is something we do need. I need, namely, more good coordination, strong coordination we need, like yours. And so Japan always trying to learn from the some other country, not just only by Japan. And this is one example. In 2013, we deployed our Japanese government medical team to the Philippines to respond to Super Typhoon Yolanda. And what we learned from the Philippines is at the health cluster meeting or coordination meeting, there was no reporting template for the early days. But the Philippines national teams are doing their daily reporting to the coordination cell on a daily basis by the suggested template, namely the local templates. So, actually it was me, but Japan Disaster Relief, some members recommend to the coordinator, national coordinator, her name is Dr. Ubai, and Dr. Ubai, you need to suggest us reporting template. Why don't you suggest to the international medical team your national template to us? And she says, oh, that's a good idea. And she suggests us to use a national template, which is called the SPEED, Surveillance in Post-Extreme Emergency and Disaster of the Philippines. And that makes us a dramatically difference. Firstly, teams just submit the form, that's it. So the meeting time became very, very short. And also, local authority can start counting the number of patients or type of health events, and so on. This is a SPEED form, very simple one-page form, just a number of the key health events. But this dramatically changed the coordination during the Super Typhoon Yolanda. So we, Japan, wish to have this thing in Japan. We developed the SPEED Japan version, so-called the J-SPEED. Idea is quite the same, just the key health events line up, just trying to get the number of it, which is related to the coordination of emergency medical teams. And something we have added in Japan is we try to connect this reporting template to the recording templates. So we put a very simple tick box like a fever, trauma, fracture, skin diseases, so on the medical record of the DMAT. And so every DMAT or JMAT, whatever Japan Red Cross, everybody need to record, and they do the tick box. Okay, this is for fever patients. And after that, they tally that into the JSP reporting form and send it to the coordination cell. This is how we start the things. And this template we learned from the Philippines changed our response dramatically. Nowadays, we can get the number of patients treated by the emergency medical team, and its location, and its type of health event in a comprehensive manner. No matter where the team comes from, the local authority can get this data on a daily level. We learned from this, from the Philippines knowledge. We have success to detect some acute watery diarrhea in some regions, so the local authority can send out the hygiene kit as a priority in that area. And also, there is a tick box. The patient is not related to the disaster, like cancer, hypertension, diabetes, and so on. And you can see the blue bar, percentage of the patients who are not related to disaster increasing day by day. And based on this number of data, local authority can suggest the exit strategy of the emergency medical team or the DMATs. So local authority is not always a disaster expert, but they can understand by data what the emergency medical supporting team like DMATs are doing on the ground, and they can do their decision making. And so this is how we're developing the thing, but the new ideas coming up. We need to do these things in electronic by the IT system. And for example, Japan, nationally we have the DMAT system, but for the international emergency response, medical response, we have the Japan Disaster Relief, JDR. And for JDR, we developed some medical record system, which is called the JDR Medical Mission Operating System, JDR MOS. And we adopt this concept of the SPEED also in this JDR medical record system. Just tick, 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 and make a report. But when we develop these things, we face some difficulty because we don't have any experience to run those things in Japan. So we want to find some collaborator or mentor to us. And actually, I was the leader of this project. And in 2015, I look around the world, who is the best of us? And I hit on your team, IDF. Your IDF team have developed your system during the Haiti earthquake, which is called the Haiti. And so I do want to learn from you. And I come over to Israel. That was my first visit to your land. That was a story in 2015. So we do have some good conversation. And we hit on some good idea. Yes, there's a two medical system. We need to standardize those things. If we can standardize those things, we can promote this kind of idea to the as international standards, maybe, because we might be the top runners, and you are definitely the top runner. Maybe if Japan can follow your style, maybe we can do something more. That was the idea we have discussed. So we went to the WHO. Odeda, my friend, is here, and we proposed to the WHO, Israel, Japan. We had this kind of idea. There's a growing needs as a universal challenge here. And to fill that coordination gap, we can make some IT issue or database issue. If we can make some universal platform by your WHO as the WHO standards, maybe we can change this world. That was our joint proposal to the WHO. Dr. Ian Norton, who was the lead of this, the WHO during those EMT initiatives those days, he clearly understands what I'm saying because he was in the room in the Philippines when I proposed a speed phone to the local authority. So he's now clearly understands what we are trying to say. We need to standardize data reporting, and by using the IT platform and so on, we can do that. We can go. And he said yes. Let's make a working group. And we had the first meeting in Tokyo, next meeting in Jerusalem, and there was very, very heated discussion. But and Noah is here, and your knowledge and our knowledge come in. We worked very closely together, and many international top experts joined in Jerusalem, and we have also we do some academic approach also, and finally. In 2015, we had success to develop the WHO standards. You and we, Japan. The WHO EMT minimum data sets. The concept is quite simple. We standardize the reporting data, print it on the medical record, tick, and summarize it simply, and that we go to the coordination cell. We can do it by paper. But also, we have standardized the e-data form at the same time. So if you can send out the e-data form, like CSV data file, like Excel. So the coordination cell can immediately start the analysis and so on. And here's the contributors. Big contribution by your Mashab and the IDF experts and so on. And with a very good international agreement, we have success to develop and launch the WHO standard. After that, we, Japan, keep on using it. Maybe this is some Japanese approach, I would say, allow me to say. Once we develop the standards, we try to use that nationally. And so now, Japan can compare the data for each event. And so now for like earthquake response and the heavy rain, water disaster, we can compare now. So we can get a more clear profile of each health profile of each disaster. And also, we are trying to expand this knowledge. I mean, the DMAT starts this kind of the generic physical version, but nowadays DPAT, which is led by Professor Takahashi and his team, they also developed the JSP tick box for the psychiatric DPAT response, psychology response. So, tick, just methodology just the same. But at the end of the day, we can make an integration report, physical, mental health, jointly come into the one reporting templates and come to the coordination cell. And we can do this kind of analysis these days. This is a transition of the mental health issue. We can do this kind of analysis and make an academic publication. And also, we have found that after the COVID disaster response, we observed actually the reduced incidence or prevalence of the acute respiratory infectious diseases because we do a massive effort to reduce to prevent the COVID-19, and we have success. We found the success that decrease incidence of ARI, acute respiratory infectious diseases, in the shelters mainly. So this gives us a good evidence to let people more evacuate to come into the shelters. Some people are afraid to go to shelter because they are afraid of COVID, but now the situation is very nicely managed, so don't be afraid, come in. It's like that kind of communication we could do via data. And with Japan, not just doing those things nationally, but also trying to support the other country doing. I was deployed to the Mozambique 2019 by JICA, and the support to run this reporting system, which is called the minimum data set in the WHO context, and to support the Minister of Health of Mozambique to run these things. And in the Africa, Mozambique, beautiful country, we have success to collect more than 40,000 patient data in a real-time manner. And so the local authority, Director Isse from the Ministry of Health, can understand what is a health event, what is the transition of those response. And he could do the data-based coordination. He seems to be very happy when he saw the report. Without the MDS, he couldn't do, it was very difficult for him to have, he was at the headquarters, so but at coordination cell, but it was very difficult to get a picture on the ground. But now he can get a picture by data with graph. He was very happy. And we do this thing only by the free Excel tool. Of course, we can do this thing in the IT advanced approach, but the Japan approach, we wish to do this thing by local capacity, not by some expensive IT system. So I try to do this thing by free Excel tool, only by it, and email system, that's it. So we can make this, and I hope at the next big response, Director Isse and his colleagues can run this thing by their capacity. And following that, we do this kind of academic publication. My associate professor, Dr. Odoko, make this kind of academic publication jointly with the Ministry of Health of Mozambique and the WHO colleagues, so we can get a more deeper understanding of the situation, and also the academic knowledge sharing by the academic manner, by academic approach. And in Moldova, I was also deployed last year and I also, many of the friends from the Maganda Bigadon and the Israel colleagues, I met there, many. And we do this reporting, and so the Ministry of Health of Mozambique also have success to get the data. Now this is running in Ukraine, Poland, also in Turkey, and this is Turkey. And this is data from the Moldova. Sorry to be back. Now, blooper. It is a percentage of patients who required medical follow-up, and it was increasing. The situation is a bit getting calm, but the percentage of patients who require medical follow-up increasing. Then actually the same finding was coming from Japan's disaster response. In 2020, Kumamoto heavy rain response. And how we interpret this thing is we Japan interpreted like we EMT, DMAT, provide care mainly at shelters. At shelters, people who require who is rich, who is young, who is healthy, who have many friends, go out from shelter very easily. Who remained in the shelter might have more health issues, might be some old elderly, might have some economic issues, and so on and so on. So naturally, we observe, so people who stay in shelter is changing. And for our interpretation, that is a reason why we observe this kind of the transition. So I shared this interpretation to the Minister of Health, Director Ion Keshoff, and he did understand the situation and do the EMT briefing in that way to stretch the point that now the continuity of care is critical. In Turkey, this is from data is from Turkey, patient directly related to the event is decreasing. This similar finding was observed in the Mozambique. So we could propose to the director of the Ministry of Health, Director Youssef, this is the data from Mozambique, this is the data for yours. You can do like this, and how the Ministry of Health Mozambique coordinate was like this, so you can go like this, and he loves this kind of data. And we also use this kind of technique in Japan. We are doing this also in COVID pandemic, so we use the same methodology. Why we Japanese is so eager to learn from the foreign countries and also to love to share this knowledge and support internationally? Because there's an obvious risk. The next big one is now coming to us. Within 13 years, we will face the big earthquake. The next one that will happen more than the 70% risk. That means we will face it. And maybe our generation, need to manage and coordinate those things. And that would kill more than 320,000 people. That's a massive number, or inaccessible number. So we need to do something. And we prepare for these things. And I do believe Japan cannot do this, how to say, to reduce the number of preventable disaster deaths, we need international support. Science told us, telling in that way. So we need some international alliance, and we need some more better coordination, strengthen coordination. And our director corridor always suggests at the end of the day, there's two things. Firstly, face-to-face relationship. This changed us a lot. I saw many old friends this time, and I saw very new friends this time in Ireland. You kindly offer us to see many people. And so I do believe, I do hope this face-to-face relationship will keep on going and keep on expanding. And we can save our nations, each other, jointly. And also, second thing is a common language. Once disaster happens, we need to speak common language. For example, namely WHO standards. So that is the other reason Japan wish to work with WHO and other alliance countries to speak common language and to save more lives. And my next step is I have, during this great 1 week stay in your land, I have observed many, Noah introduced us many great knowledge about the health EOC of your land. And and that is something we Japan wish to have now. We need to have more strong health EOC, and we need to strengthen our coordination mechanism. And from my perspective, in Mozambique, in Moldova, Israel, in Japan, I feel at the end of the day, we do the same thing. So is there any standards we can share? Is there any standard operation procedure we can learn from your side? I'm in charge of this thing now in Japan, and if we can share some standards jointly, maybe that will be the next chance for us to set some international level standards jointly and make this world better, this health emergency management system better, not just the country level, national level, but also the international level. This is the end of our presentation, and I hope you found some how we Japan is more hungry to work with your people, and to have more discussion with your people. We do realize our gap, and we do this week give us your knowledge how I was really super. And we want to keep on this relationship with your side. Thank you very much for having us, and warm welcome to all of your experts and the colleagues and friends big thanks to you, and we will try. I wish to, with big appreciation, I'll stop my talk. Thank you very much.
Professor Tatsu, colleagues, first of all, I have to say I'm amazed by one thing. You actually developed a system and you are using it, which for Israelis is whoa. In Israel, we develop systems and then we put them aside, and in the next emergency, we would say, haven't we developed something for that? So I'm really an amazing work and putting it into practice and actually listening to evidence to make decisions. I would say I wish I could show this to our political decision makers, saying decisions could be based on real science. So thank you so much, and dear colleagues, thank you for your presentations. We learned a lot. I will thank all those who are online. I will say it in Hebrew. תודה רבה. ההקלטה תהיה זמינה בערוץ היוטיוב של מגן דוד אדום, ובמסגרת שיתוף הפעולה של מגן דוד אדום ממשרד הבריאות, אנחנו גם נחלוק את ההקלטה כדי שתשמש את כולם. אז תודה לכל הצופים, בזה יסתיים השידור החי שלנו. תודה רבה על ההשתתפות, ותודה לצוות הטכני שאפשר לנו את השידור היום. אז תודה.